Hey
Hey
guys,
guys!
so welcome back to the channel. We've got a very different episode for you this week. So we've had a lot of requests about what we actually spent on our 11-week trip across Europe. So we are going to break some of that down for you today.
Yep, so no travelling this week unfortunately, but yeah, so obviously it was our first trip away. We didn't really know what it was going to cost, and yeah, so we sort of tracked it as we went along.
Yeah, we didn't really have a budget in mind. We didn't want to kind of be scrimping and actually worried about spending money. You know, we didn't want to overspend, but we also wanted to have a good time whilst on holiday, because that's kind of the point. But yeah, hopefully you will find the figures interesting, and it will show you that actually you can have a really good time abroad without spending an absolute fortune. When you compare it to like a 2-week all-inclusive holiday, it's really quite a bargain.
So just for some sort of pre-notes, we didn't stay on a lot of campsites, which really helped to keep the costs down. Found using Park for Night was really quite simple in Spain, so that was really good. And I also really enjoy cooking, so eating out wasn't a big thing for us. We tended to cook in a lot. We ate out.
We did eat out a lot as well.
Yeah, but generally speaking, the vast majority of the time we ate in. So yeah, which did again keep the costs down. Obviously, buying food from Lidl, cooking it in the van's a lot cheaper than going out to restaurants every night.
Yeah. And on the fuel side, things like fuel, we did kind of really stick around kind of like the 56 to 60 miles an hour. I think 58 is the optimum for this van for miles per gallon, and we really did get some epic mileage, miles per gallon, out of this Euro 6 engine, even though she does weigh quite a lot.
We also used an app which helps us to find the cheaper fuel stops, which was called
123 Fuel.
Yeah, and that worked really well.
That was an amazing app actually. But we'll go through all the little apps and pieces that we use to kind of save money towards the end. But let's get right into it without further ado. Okay, so the first item on our list is going to be this, and that is Eurostar. So what did the Eurotunnel cost us to get the van and the 4 of us over? So wasn't the cheapest, it was 404. And one of the reasons it was a little bit more expensive than perhaps you've paid yourselves is that they actually charged us £22 per dog per way. So that did rack up the cost quite a bit, but
spread over the 11 weeks, it makes it really quite affordable.
Yeah, so we wouldn't pay that obviously to go over for 2 weeks. We wouldn't want to pay that to go over for 2 weeks. I know some people have to. But yeah, for us, the 404 spread over the 11 weeks is kind of quite reasonable. So that is our first cost, and that is Eurotunnel 404. So obviously the next largest cost, or one of the biggest costs we're going to have, is fuel. So our diesel, having a look here on the spreadsheet, so our diesel came in at £719.18. So reasonably large amount, but
we did cover a lot of miles. Unfortunately, we didn't track our mileage, which was really dumb.
Yeah, that was my fault. I didn't reset the trip, so I got confused with the UK mileage we did before.
But we travelled through from the UK down through France, all the way along sort of the coast of Spain to Malaga, back again, with a few back and forths with going up to the desert and that sort of thing, and then obviously up through Zaragoza and Bordeaux, that sort of way. So we did cover a huge chunk of land.
Yeah, because we were driving a lot, so we didn't kind of like drive to a point for a couple of days, drive for a couple of days, get to a point, stay there for a week, then move on. We were really moving every 2-3 days. Sometimes in one day we'd move again and do another, a couple of 100 kilometers. So yeah, I think that's a reasonably fair amount, to be honest with you, for the amount of mileage we did. And obviously adding to the diesel is AdBlue, £16.73 we've got in the spreadsheet for that, but I think it is more than that because we bought a 10 litre in the French Alps for €30. So I think it probably is, and we bought again back in France the other way out. So I think it's probably around £35 for AdBlue.
Still fairly insignificant.
It's fairly insignificant.
Yeah.
I actually thought the AdBlue was supposed to last about 1,500 miles per top up. It really isn't doing that on this, so it's something that we've got to monitor to make sure that the amount of AdBlue that's being used is correct. I do feel it's using too much, but yeah, another 35 for AdBlue.
Another big cost that we had was tolls. Now I know that you can avoid the tolls. That's something that we would probably do in future. But for this trip, it was freezing cold in January and we just wanted to get to Spain. So we decided that we would pay the tolls to get through as quickly and as easily as possible. Obviously, we were very new to driving the van. So the idea of big motorways was really good because it meant we could really split the driving quite evenly.
Yeah. And I think the noob factor, the kind of like, we're not really sure how she handles on, you know, and obviously driving on the wrong side of the road for the first time and everything, you know, and although it was actually relatively simple once we got there, we did really want to just make life as easy as possible when on the road. So that's why we did that.
So the cost of the tolls were?
Cost of the tolls was,
£243.
And 35 pence, and I'll add that to the list for our total. So yeah, relatively expensive for tolls, and sorry if some of you are screaming at the screen now going, oh my god, why are you paying that much in tolls? We probably won't on the second trip out.
No.
In fact, where we had to take some back roads because of the wind on the last trip, we realised we're missing some beautiful villages and some beautiful scenery. So actually, I think probably the second trip will be less distance covered in, you know, the same kind of time, but I think less distance because we missed a lot by hacking through the motorways.
Our main goal was to just get somewhere a bit warmer. And that was
we
really
had enough
what we
at the
needed.
start of January. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. Okay, so next on the list, of course, is LPG or GPL if you're in France.
Autogas.
Autogas.
In Spain.
Yes. And yeah, we were absolutely blown away by how cheap it was and how long it lasted. Sure, we weren't using it for heating, but we were cooking a lot, and the whole 11 weeks our LPG came to $59.93. We've got the Gaslow refill system, which worked beautifully everywhere, and I cannot believe how long that lasted. I mean, we were like going, oh my god, we're going to be out of gas, and I go and check the cylinder because we haven't got the digital measure on there, and it was like, well, we're over half still. We've got a 6 kilo emergency bottle as well in case we do run out. Never got anywhere near using it, even when we kind of pushed it and took a risk that we'd be fine. Just not a problem at all. And just one thing on refilling of LPG when you're abroad, there seems to be a lot of conversations in a lot of the groups that people are getting refused filling if they're in motorhomes. We didn't get any problems. We didn't have any problems at all, and in fact at a few of the petrol stations they did it for us. And yes, we have an external fill on our gas cupboard, but really it was not an issue at all. There wasn't even a hint of, oh god, we're going to have to go somewhere else. I either did it or they did it for me. So yeah, so let's add LPG to the list. Moving on.
Entrance tickets. So we didn't go into a lot of museums and places, but we did, particularly towards the end of the trip, decide to do a few of these things. So we did like Valencia. I went into the Valencia Museum, and in Zaragoza I went into quite a few museums. So we did spend a little bit on entrance tickets, and that was just under £60. It was £59.93, and worth every penny actually. I think that in future I'd definitely be wanting to do a bit more going into places to have a little explore, particularly as you're quite happy to enjoy the dogs.
And obviously that's, you've got to take in consideration as well, that amount is for one person, because I couldn't go in with the dogs.
Yeah.
And the reason Claire goes into the museums and I hold the dogs is that there's just no way that she can hold on to two dogs that size. When they pull, they are going to have her over. So
yeah,
we took the view that,
and also because you do all the editing, it made sense. We kind of found a bit of a rhythm towards the end where we'd say, okay, well, today's an editing day, rather than me sitting around waiting, I'll go off, have a look at some of the museums.
Yeah.
And that worked really well. You enjoy going to a museum, but I'm like,
I enjoy a museum.
Crazy.
I enjoy a good museum, like the next person. This one, absolutely, just, yeah. I mean, where I would spend half an hour looking through something,
I like to read.
You'll spend an hour, 2 hours just reading every single little thing up on the wall, looking at the intricate details, where I go, that's really stunning, beautiful, and kind of analyse it for a couple of minutes and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
She's kind of like, just like fixated.
I love it.
So
I love it.
Claire gets way more out of museums than I do, although I was super jealous that she got to go into the amphitheatre ruins and I didn't. I think
amazing.
that would have been, I was editing that and I'm like, oh my God, that is amazing.
Yeah.
But so
Entrance
we will
tickets.
add entrance tickets to the list.
And I definitely think that you should budget for that, because it really was fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Okay, so parking. Now, when we say parking, this isn't just kind of roadside parking to go for a trip somewhere, although some of it is. A lot of the time we were parking overnight. So I think we had 3 nights in Valencia at 2 separate occasions. It was €2, overnight for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So that encapsulates all of that kind of parking where we were kind of stealth parking, and if we were using car parks where we were allowed to. I think we used a couple where there was no clear boundaries really whether you could or couldn't. So we just said to ourselves, we'll get moved. If we get moved on, we'll move. But we didn't get moved on, so we just paid the fee and that was it. But yeah, so parking, 45, 85, add to the list. Okay.
So campsites is our next thing. We did go on to a few campsites, and we tended to do that in cities where it was kind of recommended that you do so because of the risk of break-ins. So for example, we spent 3 nights in Benidorm. We also spent a couple of nights when we were just not getting any solar, and we didn't really have enough solar on the van to cope, so we needed to go into a campsite for powering up. And also we had a night in the desert where we needed to go on a campsite because we were just being blown to bits and we were struggling. So campsites, we spent £187.50, and I think that all of them were needed, but with the solar that we've now installed, I think we'll be able to negate that.
Yeah, I mean, based on the number of times that we stayed and thinking about why we stayed, I would probably say 90% of those would be pointless now.
Yeah.
Because now we've got the solar sorted out, we will be self-sufficient for power. And yeah, not having power to cook and not having power to edit and stuff like that was just, we couldn't do it. So yeah, so 187.49, let's add that to the list and move on to the next item, which is souvenirs. Souvenir category, but let's just call it stuff that we wanted to buy, stuff we saw and went, oh, that's cute, or it's going to be good for the van, or for family and friends, things we bought for family and friends.
We also bought a few bits in duty free.
We did, yeah. So we bought some perfumes and aftershaves and some bits and pieces for family and duty free. So we actually only spent 173.79 on stuff. So obviously that entire amount of money didn't need to be spent. If we didn't buy anybody anything and we didn't get any bits and pieces for the van, we could have saved that money. But like we said at the start, we really didn't want to be that tight that we were really seriously not spending any money on anything that wasn't an essential. So yeah, so souvenirs, 173.79 on the list.
So the next thing that we had to spend money on, so the next thing that we had to spend money on was laundry. So obviously had to keep up with that, and I think we did incredibly well. So we spent, what was it, £31.68 on laundry, and yeah, I mean we kind of lasted 2 weeks, took one load and sort of dealt with it there. Used the campsite laundries, which are sometimes cheaper. So generally speaking was pretty good. The majority of time I did use a tumble dryer, just because I found that was actually trying to get stuff to dry was just too much of a mission, particularly when we had 2 weeks worth of clothing. But I thought that it was going to be a lot more than that.
Yeah. And the thing is, we did consider washing the clothes in the van, and the washing of the clothes in the van isn't the issue. The drying is the issue, and because we wild camp so much, we really like to be as invisible as we can be in an A class, but we do like to just look like we're parked up and there's no one here. So we don't really do anything external of the van when we're wild camping, either in the UK or abroad. On airs is different, obviously, you know, but we still like to we don't really want to put washing out and even chairs out a lot of the time, and I think we used the awning once in 11 weeks, because you just weren't in areas where it was appropriate to do that. But yeah, the laundry, I think we did exceptionally well. It was
crazy, because some of the laundries, it was sort of tenner to get it all done. Some of them were £4, so it really depended on where we were, and there seemed to be no rhyme or reason to it. But
yeah. Okay, so let's add laundry to the list, and that's another £31.68. Okay, so moving on from laundry to food shops. So we did the majority of our eating and cooking obviously in the van. We made packed lunches. We had all our bars, our snack bars and drinks and so on, but we took lunch with us to save on costs as well. So for the 11 weeks we spent £1,130 and a 31p on food. So
shopped primarily in Lidl, and a couple of times in Aldi, but Lidl was so easy, and I cook from scratch a lot, so I don't tend to buy a lot of premium products, which did keep the costs down.
I think that was actually pretty good. We ate whatever we wanted to, and we got into these luxury bags of nuts, didn't we? So we had all these different flavoured nuts, because they're a really good snack for us. So yeah, a lot of nuts, a lot of dog biscuits, these 4 packs of biscuits. But yeah, so obviously a reasonable amount of food for, you know, if you consider, I guess, you know, $350, I don't know, this day and age, $400 a month on food for 2 people, I guess.
£100 a week for us.
So I think it's reasonably good. So let's add food to that list. £1,130 and 31p. Okay, next section.
Eating out. So we did occasionally go out to eat. So we had a few ice creams. I hope you enjoyed watching the dogs eat the ice creams.
We never had an ice cream without the dogs. The dogs, every time you see us eating an ice cream, either before or after, the dogs had theirs.
And we decided that when we were in cities, we would look to eat out. So Valencia, we ate out
and there was just some beautiful places, and it was like,
coffees,
it's so nice to eat here, and we just went, you know what, and that's what we were saying at the start, was like, we didn't want to go, it'd be lovely to eat here, but it's going to cost €20 or something. You know, it's
genuinely really enjoyed the food when we ate out, and I think because we did it sort of rarely, we really appreciated it and picked nice places to eat. So eating out, we spent £476.85. That included ice creams, coffees, all that kind of thing, having a little drink at the bar, whatever. That was what we spent.
Okay, so let's add that to the list again.
Eating
476.85 for eating out. All right, so one little small category. So kind of every now and then when we were filling up with fuel or something, we would just grab some rubbish at the petrol station. So what we call petrol station snacks or petrol station goodies is $27.97. Not much to say about that. It was an utter treat spend every time we went into the petrol station. So let's just chuck that on the bottom of the list there. $27.97 petrol station
Snacks.
treats.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is pretty much everything we spent.
I think so, yeah.
I think there may be 100 or so euros of miscellaneous that we may have not tracked correctly. So we're going to say plus or minus. So if we add all of this up and drop a total in there, we get to £3,577 and 6p. So over 11 weeks, we think that's a pretty good price.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments what you think, and let us know from your own trips of the similar time period what you spent, and maybe let us know what the differences are in your figures. But yeah, I think for nigh on 3 months away,
We did very well.
three
And
and a
I
half
think
grand.
that, I mean, obviously, having never done anything like this before, it was a real test for us to see how we could work
Yeah.
things. And I think that, you know, moving forward, we probably would be a little bit less concerned about sort of money spent, because I think we did so well. But it does make it a very sustainable lifestyle for us.
Okay, so hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into what you can expect it to cost you for roughly around 3 months in Europe in a motorhome.
Yep, so any tips, any hints that you guys have got based on what we've shown you today, would love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, anything that you do differently that saves you money would be great to hear, and we can try and implement that on the next trip.
And obviously we'd love to hear your experiences. You know, if you've been away and you've had an epic trip, what did you guys spend, and how did it go for you?
Yeah, so don't forget to check out our Valencia videos and the Zaragoza videos just to see what we were talking about in this video today. And we will catch you guys on the next one. Bye.
Bye.